playing with your balls the whole time.
Pretty much. I'm just going to be tickling your balls the entire time.
Okay.
I'm going to be, Mr. Anik, I'm going to be singing your praises like the second coming of Christ. So please bear with me while I do something.
Well, I got all these new haters, so I'll be happy to hear the praise.
Broadcast live. Coming to you live.
We're live.
In front of an audience from around the world, where we talk about fighters, fighting, and events. Welcome to Fight World Live, where you can hear about the latest in the world of combat sports. Get ready to gear up and square up, because we are going live. And now,
Broadcasting live. We will broadcast live.
this is Fight World Live.
All right, so I'm here. Welcome to Fight World Live on Amazon Prime. I'm here with four-time world champion, Mr. Gabe. At one point in time, considered one of the best fighters in the world, Jake Hatton, and arguably, and I will make the debate right now, one of the best MMA commentators of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jon Anik. Let's go.
Man. It's great to be with you guys. Let's go. Right, I got a little button now. I can actually hit some applause. This looks like a tough room. Looks like some tough gentlemen who would be okay in a back alley, but it's great to be with you guys, obviously, and always a lot going on in this UFC world. A new day, a new headline, it seems, with this Dustin Poirier stuff, but it's great to talk to you boys tonight.
Absolutely great to be talking to you. And by the way, before we begin, Gabe, I don't mean to cut you off. In the spirit, in your honor, sir, and in my honor, I want Gabe and Jake. Jake, obviously a fan of the Denver Broncos, and Gabe, a fan of shitting on my entire life and everything I love. Let's have a moment of silence, please, for the New England Patriots and a prayer that they'll have a better season next season. Please join me in prayer. Gabe,
I bleed orange and blue, John. I'm sure you appreciate this, and I can't do it.
Nope.
Well, as I get older, I've softened as a sports fan, and I live in South Florida. I grew up loathing the Miami Dolphins. Dan Marino would just go into Foxborough, and it was a question of how many the Dolphins would beat my Patriots by. But it's amazing to me. I got to say, right, everybody sort of celebrating the Patriots' demise, and that's fine, right? Even my daughter's like, we're picking third in the draft, but I'm down here with the Miami Dolphins. They haven't tasted anything resembling success in my lifetime, essentially, when it comes to the postseason. So, I'll take my 6 rings in the prime of my life as a sports fan every day of the goddamn week. We'll celebrate Tommy's number 7. But, we'll see what happens if Gerard Mayo's the guy, if they can hit on the quarterback. But, yeah, it's a forgettable season, and it's been a forgettable couple of years, the Mac Jones era in New England.
Yep.
I'm not going to change anytime soon. Just telling you that right now. Not that I know anything.
The thing is, you got to hit on a quarterback, right? So all these teams, theoretically, are going to draft this quarterback-heavy class or not, but you got to hit on the guy. So even if it's not one of the top 3 names, that is the guy that you think can be a franchise quarterback, doesn't matter. You got to hit on that quarterback. And what's your % chance of doing that? You're right. Probably below 50%. So, yeah, I don't think that savior's walking through that door anytime soon.
Well, even drafting one, look at Russell Wilson and the Broncos. It's been painful for the last 6 or 7 years and our carousel of quarterbacks. But, not all of it.
Great franchise, though. Great franchise. Great fan base. I got to think they'll get back, and they have a Hall of Fame head coach. So I do think that, and dude, Cortland Sutton, man, gosh, what a season he had. Hopefully that guy's sticking around. I thought he was under-celebrated last year. I'm trying to, turn your frown upside down.
I appreciate it.
I'd like to add that I have no idea what any of you are talking about whatsoever. None of those names mean anything to me. And, yeah.
Well, I'd prefer to talk about mixed martial arts probably as well. But, growing up in Boston, whether you like it or not, I think most of us become diehard sports fans for that city.
Now back to martial arts. I've been watching martial arts my entire life, and I can name every single great MMA commentator. I mean, Steven Quadros, Bas Rutten, Mike Goldberg, Joe Rogan. Top echelons. You are one of the greatest MMA commentators, and you will go down as one of the greatest MMA commentators. And there's thousands of MMA commentators, but there's only one Jon Anik. Are you ready to make that case and make that argument that you are one of the best? You were going down as one of the best hype men in the game, because I can make that argument for you. I mean, I could talk shit all day long on Sherdog and on the Underground. Are we ready to make that case, sir?
Well, thank you, brother, for all the kind words. It's certainly not my case to make, right? I just want to go out and, as trite as it sounds, continue to execute and perform and have Dana White want me in that seat, because I can assure you, if there are a couple bad shows or something that they don't like, I won't necessarily be the guy. So maybe that's my mentality and has always been my mentality. And that's some reason why I've stuck around here for 12 or 13 years. But I appreciate the acknowledgement. Sometimes I feel like in the United States of America, I may not get the recognition as a play-by-play guy unless I go do football or something like that. But I love the sport that I'm in, and I'm so thankful to have this job. And it's been a whirlwind. It's crazy to think back to calling my first show, Jim Miller and Melvin Gillard, January 20th of 2012. And even a few years before that, getting the chance to do Bellator season 1 in 2009. I just felt like my skill set was better served for play-by-play than sitting on a desk. And so I started to steer things in that direction. And there's just no adrenaline, at least for sports broadcasters. I'm not a fighter nor a professional athlete, but there's just no adrenaline rush, I think, for a sports fan who can't compete than to be calling live sporting events. And, thankfully, so far, so good. I take it very seriously, providing the soundtrack for all of these championship fights and historical moments. And for 5 years, I didn't call title fights. And I think I was groomed the right way in AAA to be ready when the call came in. So thank you for that. And, wherever my career stacks up, when it's all said and done, I assure you I'm not going to be the old guy calling these fights in my 60s, preventing some young guy from getting an opportunity. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully I got at least 10 good years left in me.
I've got a question for you. How did you get involved in the MMA scope? Like, how did you get involved in this? You said Bellator was your beginning, but what made you even think about you know what, I'm gonna jump into this MMA? There's so many different avenues you can go in sports broadcasting. What led you towards MMA?
Well, I'll try to say this efficiently, but ultimately it was the sport. I was working as a boxing radio journalist in Boston, and we started to cover a lot of HBO pay-per-views on the boxing side. Gary Shaw, boxing promoter, launched Elite XC, and he invited a lot of us boxing media to come cover Elite XC1 in Tunica, Mississippi in 2007. Main event was Renzo Gracie against Frank Shamrock, Gina Carano, Julie Kedzie, a lot of big names. I'll never forget Charles Crazy Horse Bennett knocking out KJ Noons, who was talking a bunch of shit during the week, right? But I went in there as sort of a reluctant boxing journalist who was wondering about the wrestling and the grappling and what is this MMA avalanche that is coming at boxing right now. I was probably a boxing apologist and a boxing defender, and now I'm probably a boxing antagonist. But when I covered that first show in 2007, it opened my world, even though I didn't like some of the dragons breathing fire or certain things that came along with that Elite XC show. I just felt like MMA had a whole lot that boxing didn't. So I loved covering that event. Shortly thereafter, I got an opportunity as some sort of combat sports guy at ESPN to host MMA Live, which they started on ESPN.com in 2008. And then got the call to do Bellator in 2009. Couldn't do season 2 because of contractual reasons. But then I was covering John Jones versus Shogun Rua for ESPN in March of 2011. My now boss, Craig Borsari, told me at that time, pulled me aside backstage, said the UFC was doubling their inventory from 20 live events to 40, and that they wanted me to call half the shows. And it didn't matter if they were on the G4 network. That's all I needed to hear. And they bought out the last few months of my UFC contract. And I moved to Vegas October 2011, and here we are.
Pardon my enthusiasm, but
buddy. I got to take this guy on the road with me, I think.
But it's such a fucking hard gig. Like, how do you deal with the criticism, and how do you still march forward knowing that you're I think you're one of the best guys in the game?
Well, the criticism is not really something that can be front of mind, of course, unless it's coming from Dana and Craig and my bosses. I have great producers, Zach Candido and Michael LaPlante. But it's an exercise, man. There's no doubt in terms of mental agility and putting my mind and body in a position to call fights for 8 hours. I'll never forget doing the last football game I did, a college football game in 2015. And you blink, it's halftime, you get a 12-minute break, and then it's like door to door 4 hours, right? This is like a 10-hour commitment. And I have conditioned myself, and I'm sure professional athletes may laugh this off, but I have conditioned myself to be able to get through these and even sometimes go host the post show or be an analyst on the post show afterwards. I am totally fucking cashed at the end of these pay-per-view weeks. So I appreciate you acknowledging the exercise that is there and that it is. I find it interesting when some fans will be like, dude, does Anik have to read another promo, as if like I control the inventory? Now I have
that's your job.
I have some control when it comes to, they'll say, hey, if you can fit in a Toyo tires here, we really fucking appreciate it, and so I have some control as to maybe when those are executed. But largely, I don't even have that. And yeah, I wish the EA Sports UFC 5 reads were a little bit shorter, but I don't know that you can find any broadcaster out there that can read them as quickly as I can. So I'm trying to rifle through that as well. But some of the fans think it's like my call.
Yeah. And I'm mixing up my words too and shining your balls, as Gabe and Jake alluded and warned you that I was going to do, because I commentated on the regional scene, and obviously I'm getting those cues, and it's such a hard process, especially, you have to talk for 4, 5, 6 hours at sometimes. You have to make sure that you're being neutral, and you're making and telling everybody's story, like why you should relate to this person, why you should appreciate this fighter. And you have to have that middle ground. I remember my first commentating event, like, I wanted to talk like, and the biggest advice I got was talk to people like you're in a bar. And I was like, oh, that choke is tighter than Tupac and Suge Knight in 94. And oh, he's taking more kicks to the leg than Nancy Kerrigan. And then I hear my producer saying, David, stop with your fucking puns. Like, you're dealing with so many different critics out there, but you've done a great job, and like you're doing it at the highest level with a lot more masters and a lot more cooks in the kitchen.
Well, thank you. I learned a lot that first season of Bellator because I felt like they had hired the wrong guy. I had called some boxing for ESPN, but we're talking in a control room, a lot of Filipino and Thai boxers that I really didn't have anything resembling prep nor research on. And that season sort of taught me that, you know what, you stay in your lane and you lean on your analyst, who hopefully is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Like, I always prefer to have the grappler with me if at all possible, because that would in theory be my biggest area of weakness, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And certainly there are times where I will ask a question that might be rhetorical to me to make sure that I'm simplifying this sport for a portion of the masses, because the fan base really does turn over every few years and we acquire new fans, right? Like Dominic Cruz said to me recently, there's a lot of these fans that don't even necessarily know that I was a fighter at the highest level or even haven't seen me fight. Right now, he's an interesting case because he hasn't fought all that often in the last few years, but he says most of my fame is from being from being a commentator and not being a fighter. So, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's a really, really fun job. I mean, imagine what it's like to sit down and have Joe Rogan next to you for a UFC pay-per-view. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So, question: now that you're in the landscape of MMA, are you training? Are you trying to? Is that a way of like kind of assisting yourself in preparation?
So certainly when it comes to the grappling, that's not something where they want to hear a bunch from me. Like when the fight hits the ground, like you'll notice I really pick my spots. Even if you're going to call a choke out that is incorrect, Bravo versus Anaconda, right? Just scream submission from the top of your lungs as opposed to screwing it up, right? So I did do some jiu-jitsu with Pahumpa at American Top Team West Palm Beach. Fucking hated it. I took my son. He liked it a little bit less than I did, but I think he was a little bit too young and too small. They were asking him to come like early with like the 3-year-olds, even though he was 5. And so not there yet with my son. I did some boxing in Woburn, Massachusetts back in 2005, 2006. I do some MMA strength and conditioning with the Institute of Human Performance. Gilbert Burns' guys who, Gilbert got me a package with them a few years ago. So I've been going strong ever since, try to get there once a week. So, but no, I mean, certainly I wish I had more of an appetite for the grappling because like Pahumpa's offered to pad out my garage and come give me privates, but I'd rather play basketball,
Great guy though. Great guy. I've known him for many years.
Guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's the best. I was so happy to see him get that championship with Alexandre Pantoja,
So how long are you planning on being in the sport? Do you plan on like branching out, or do you plan on staying in mixed martial arts? Or because there's rumors flying, rumors and innuendo, like how long do you plan on staying in mixed martial arts, or do you plan on branching out? Because obviously you're a great commentator. You have a great podcast with Mr. Florian. I mean, we were just talking about the great Kenny Florian. What's your game plan, or what's your career trajectory?
Well, it's hard to imagine my life without the UFC, but I've devoted a lot of my, not just professional, but personal life to this endeavor for a long time. So at some point, perhaps forget about the NFL, and maybe I shouldn't have even invoked that recently, but at some point, perhaps there's a more selfless decision to make my kids the center of the universe the way they deserve to be. Now, my job does afford me some opportunities where I'm home during the day. We got soccer practice coming up tonight, right? But just miss a lot of games and a lot of things over the years. So when my daughter enters high school, and my eldest of 3, and I'm 15 years in, maybe you come to a point where it's like you scale back or try to do something domestic, so every show isn't 5 or 6 days. So that's a big part of things as well. I got asked this week, would I feel like my career is complete if I never called an NFL football game? And I think so at this point. I've been able to sort of survive as the lead voice of a sport for several years, and I think prove my worth, or whatever I'm trying to prove myself, as an elite play-by-play announcer. But certainly the NFL is king in this country. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I sit around and feel like I would like to prove to the world that I'm not just the energetic UFC guy who can't find his mid voice, that I can go call an NFL football game and contend with those guys. But I have the job that I want. And I don't know that the decision is going to be up to me in terms of how long I keep this job. There are a lot of factors that go into it in broadcasting when it comes to timing and everything else. But certainly I have the job I want. My contract is up in October of 2026. That'll be 15 years. And hopefully I got several more thereafter. But I'm telling you guys, I ain't going to be doing this till I'm 70 out of like ego or anything like that. I'll be, I don't know, I'll be coaching sports or teaching special needs kids or something.
We should do commentating for a Patriots game, and then we can both have crippling depression together, and we can both cry on each other's shoulders. I think it'll be very fascinating for 2 Patriots, like diehards, to commentate a game and just, go through the waves of emotion with the fans, and just, I'll probably end the game killing myself, maybe jumping over the bleachers. Like, that's probably where I'm at right now with the Patriots. It's so interesting that you feel that you're this complete and you're this whole with your career that you don't imagine going to the NFL or anything like that. And you're more than qualified to do so. Like, that's so fascinating.
Well, we'll see what happens, right? I just don't know that opportunity is going to present itself. Am I subconsciously trying to manifest it? I don't think so. But we'll see what happens. That opportunity has to be there. And ideally, it'd be a situation where the UFC would be on board with letting me do some games or something like that. But truly, the UFC is my focus. And even when it comes to the Patriots, right? As I mentioned, I've sort of softened as a sports fan a little bit. My heart is so linked and tied to MMA that I think, as far as the other sports, like I said the other night, I was like, do I enjoy watching my daughter play soccer more than I enjoy watching like the Celtics? Like, is this really happening right now? And I don't know that that's necessarily the case, right? But I don't know.
I hope you guys are watching this.
Like, I will order every UFC pay-per-view for the rest of my life. Like, you can be sure, right? Like, those fights will always be of consequence to me, whether I'm calling those fights or not. But, I got 5 or 6 internationals the rest of the way this year. Like, there's a tremendous strain on my family. And I think that's more front of mind for me than the NFL in terms of either scaling back or just not doing this until all my remaining black hairs are white.
I got a question for you, John. Big fan, and by far you're the best broadcaster. It used to be, and I go way back. I'm an old guy, go way back in the sport. But David's right. It used to be Boss and Quadros. That was, I was like, nobody will ever be better. Nobody will ever be better. But I can't imagine watching a broadcast without you, Cormier, and Rogan. You guys complement each other so incredibly well. So well. I wanted to say that, but your podcast is fantastic. Does the podcast feel like work, or is that just kind of a fun? And by the way, I used to hang out with Kenny. Kenny's one of the funniest guys when I went to lunch with him a few times that I have ever met. He's just got that dry sense of humor. Yeah. And people don't really get to see that, but he's one of the funniest guys ever.
Text him and tell him to let it fucking rip on the podcast, right? We need more of that Ken Flow comedy. I think now that we're doing some of these watch parties, it's starting to come out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, my best friend, and it's crazy to think we've been talking at each other and with each other going all the way back to 2008. But I appreciate you saying that. And my style's not for everybody, right? I think you find your voice pretty quickly. You find out pretty early on whether or not you have chemistry with someone. I did my first pay-per-view with Rogan in 2012, UFC 155 on 3 days notice. And you sort of have chemistry or you don't, like the greatest tweet I've ever received was Joe Rogan pushing something out there after that broadcast of UFC 155, whatever he said about me being a true pro and that he enjoyed the broadcast, right? So I think you develop chemistry and have it or you don't pretty quickly in a broadcast booth. But Yeah, man, I think we all have our own style. Certainly, I think as you get older, you become more comfortable with your voice, right? Like you can be sure when I'm calling UFC 155 12 years ago with Joe in a 2-man booth, like I'm not thinking about letting the comedy go right now. If something that I think's funny pops into my head, I don't care if I get stonewalled and they don't think it's funny. I'm letting it rip, right? So you gain a different confidence and we're like brothers. We got the private text chain and everything else. So I appreciate you saying that. Sometimes I get asked, like, would you rather just have one broadcast team? I've worked with, I think, like 18 different combinations. The short answer is yes. Like, I would like to have one broadcast team. As much as I love all those broadcast partners, I think it would be nice to have a broadcast team that you're always on the road with, but that's not our reality. And I guess I do like the change up every now and again. But if you're really trying to be the best broadcast team in the world, right? Like we would get Joe Rogan more than 8 times a year. And he knows I feel that way. You know, I'm always trying to convince him to grab his passport.
And maybe Ray Longo in there with you guys.
Oh, yes.
Hey, and by the way, I wanted to apologize that I'm not in the bathroom when we do this interview.
Bro, if you don't know the reference, Ray Longo, the last
Jesus.
2
I was crying.
Done it from like a little one toilet bathroom. Like, bro, it's episode 460.
I thought he was kidding at first, and I was like, you know what? You gotta love Ray. Ray is Ray. He's just unapologetic, and he's just him.
Ray's the fucking man, and I actually did a watch party with Steamroller over in Long Island. We did the last UFC watch party, and I love the Ray Longo stories. And he's just like just an old grumpy guy who just is a fucking like a knowledge pool of mixed martial arts. And the guy's funny as fuck too. So like I love me some Ray Longo. I'm a big fan of Ray Longo.
Yeah,
we work with him.
We've had some misses on the podcast, but we hit on that one. When we were launching in 2015, we wanted a coach to have a weekly segment, and Longo was the guy. And certainly it's been great to watch his athletes sort of transcend eras and him have a champion in every era, right, with Matt Serra and Chris Weidman and Aljamain Sterling. But the dude is amazing. We also thought we had to balance out some of the Boston with me and Ken Flo with Ray Longo out of New York. I thought that would be a good balance, but man, it's like we're getting him an audio setup for his gym and for his house. But it's
every week you're like, we're ordering you this. We're gonna order this.
People think it's a bit, right? Like they think we're doing this for the show. But yeah, man, like I'm not all that technologically inclined, right? Like I just put in this new studio in my master bedroom. Let's see if I can show you. Right, I got the wide shot there, boys.
Nice.
Very nice.
And there's my twin brother's seat. You know what I mean?
Very nice.
Post-COVID, this stuff all costs like a fraction of what it used to, you know. But yeah, we got to get Longo a setup. It's a little embarrassing at this point in time. It's not a bit.
You want to be my dream like commentating gig? Like maybe like we could do like just hook it up. But Matt Serra, you and Ray Longo, and you got Matt Serra like breaking down. Have you ever seen his breakdown techniques, like where he's like showing a technique? You just put your arm here. Yeah, it's gonna fucking work. I promise. Don't do that. Like I fucking love Matt Serra. Like you have those 3, money. Like, shut up and take my money. You know, that would be my dream commentating team just for one show.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the best we can do, at least right now, is getting Matt Serra on the Ray Longo Minute on the Anik and Florian podcast. Now, that is not a cheap plug, but when I do have Matt on our podcast, however infrequently, I always try to surprise Ray with his presence because I think it's kind of bittersweet for Ray. Like, he loves it, but he's like, oh, here we go again. I get enough of this guy, you know.
So, big news, obviously, with UFC 299. UFC 300 still doesn't have a main event. What are your thoughts right now going into UFC 299 and UFC 300? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's crazy, right? Because I got UFC 298 with one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Alexander Volkanovski against Ilia Topuria. Rumor has it Robert Whittaker might be fighting Paulo Costa. So I appreciate the noise for 299. I'm here in South Florida. That card is just immeasurably deep to precede UFC 300. It's just absurd. But my brother, I think you know, right? You're in the space. Like, I can't even get past what we got to do in Anaheim. So I was asked this week, like, have you thought about UFC 300 and your preparation? And it's like, man, like that is so back burner stuff right now. Yeah. Every one of these pay-per-view weeks is just a monster. But I'm excited for Miami to get back-to-back pay-per-views, at least back-to-back years, right? After not being there since 2003. And UFC 300 is going to be an absolute monster, right? There are only a few undisputed titles that actually could still be on the line in the main event. So you can sort of pare it down a little bit. I don't know if something's going to come out of left field. I assure you, I have no more information than you guys do. But when the UFC pushed out that graphic recently with that empty slot for the main event, they wouldn't do that unless they had a few irons in the fire. So I think if I had to make a prediction, it'll be either the middleweight or light heavyweight title that will be on the line in the main event at UFC 300.
I'm hyped to the tits for even Kayla Harrison fighting against Holly Holm. I'm like, guys, boys, we can make that the main event, because right when they made that announcement, every single guys, don't. Here's the guy's gonna shit on my parade.
Shut up, Potter. Just
Here's
stop.
the guy's gonna shit on my parade.
Stop.
Do you guys want me to join you in shitting on his parade or no?
Please don't shit on my
Please.
parade.
Here's the thing, my man. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Yan Xiaonan is challenging Zhang Weili for the title that night, right?
Thank you.
Kayla Harrison is in the featured prelim, but I did a year-end review show in 2023, and David, I love you, brother. I did a year-end review show in 2023, and they asked me like for dream fights for 2024, and one of them was Yan Xiaonan against Zhang Weili. China versus China for the women's strawweight title. Let's go. So, but yeah, I'm excited. Kayla is a dear friend, and I am so happy that I get to call her next fight, because there was a time when I thought I would never call her fight. So I share a lot of your enthusiasm. But we just had to check a little bit, my man.
I'm also biased because I've been hugging, I've been on the bandwagon of Holly Holm and Kayla Harrison forever, and these two forces are coming together. I'm excited. Maybe I'm just biased, but I think every single fight on UFC 300, that's what I was gonna say, could be a main event caliber fight. I think that's what I was initially going for. But if Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm,
shut up.
What do you mean? Shut up.
Shut up.
It's a great fight.
The top fight in the prelims, maybe a fight night. I wouldn't even call it a fight night main event.
I love it, the top card of the prelims, because that would lead into UFC 300 pay-per-view brilliantly.
It's a great fight as the very last fight for the prelims. Main event.
You believe these guys, Mr. Anik? Unbelievable. This is what I have to deal with.
Hey, John, where do you think
I got mine?
What's that?
Where would you put them in the card? Where would you put Holly and Kayla in the card? I mean, not being funny, but serious. I like all the eyeballs on the free,
yeah. So for a lot of pay-per-views, that featured prelim slot is really prime, because you might even have more eyeballs on you on ESPN than we would have on a pay-per-view, depending on the magnitude of the card. There are some other inconvenient truths, though, about fighting in that feature prelim. If you go to a decision, sometimes you don't get a post-fight interview, which can be a really big deal, right?
Yeah.
Now, we can bleed that at times, depending on the clock, right? Like if Kayla Harrison wins her UFC debut, I have a sneaking suspicion that we would be able to bleed that a little bit, but that's not always the case. So that is part of the issue with that slot, I guess. But that's where I would slot them. I just don't think, given what I've seen proposed for UFC 300, that they're going to land on pay-per-view, right? Isn't the first fight of the night, I think, on something I saw, Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez? Maybe that wasn't a bout order that the UFC pushed out there, but I'm sure you guys saw the graphic.
The card's so incredibly stacked, I don't know where you'd put them.
Yeah, but not main event.
Every fight is main event caliber. That's what I was trying to say. That was my point.
All right.
Besides the fact that I'm a Holly Holm and Kayla Harrison fanboy, I cannot stress that point even harder. But every fight is a main event caliber fight.
Is that UFC Gabe in the middle? I need to hear from Gabe, because I think he's going to reach through the meeting here.
Comes Gabe shitting on my life
right now.
Sir, shit on my life, please.
I love David Potter, but he's wrong so much.
Let's Killington, ladies and gentlemen.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate it. He's wrong on this, like he's wrong on many things. The man
guys shit on me because I like power slap,
and I love him, but
unbelievable.
This is what the show looks like every week, John. It's us shitting on Potter.
No, I love it. You guys got a nice little mix.
And I'll tell you, when we get to the point where I can slap you through the feed, that's when I know we've hit maximum technology.
So now that Gabe admitted that he actually likes power slap and he actually wants to perform a power slap, before we let you go, Mr. Anik, who is your biggest inspiration? I love Howard Cosell. I've always looked up to Howard Cosell. Always watched ESPN classics and watch his commentating. But who is your biggest inspiration, and what got you into commentating and being one of the greatest hype men who walked the face of the MMA world?
So a lot of my biggest influences in broadcasting were so much better than me at their particularly their particular chosen craft that it gave me great clarity to maybe not do what they do or go in a different direction. Certainly, Sean McDonough has been my biggest play-by-play influence. I got to work with him for a time at a Sporting News Radio affiliate in Boston. And if you don't know, Sean McDonough still calls some of the biggest sporting events for ESPN to this day. Dry sense of humor. I love when his comedy comes out, but he was probably my biggest inspiration. But when I talk about some of the broadcasters who were so elite that I could never do anything close to them, Vin Scully, the legendary Dodgers broadcaster, I mean, that guy was so good. I was like, well, I can't do baseball on the radio because I'll never be as good as that guy. And then Ryan Russillo and Colin Cowherd, guys doing solo acts on the radio. I wanted to be a radio guy for years, and I was, but I wanted co-hosts, right? I would never do the Jon Anik show, even though I've had multiple opportunities to do the Jon Anik show 5 days a week. Maybe I would do that in like a Pat McAfee setting if I had a bunch of different co-hosts, but I don't want to be the solo act. And so I learned that pretty quickly, and that helped sort of guide my career a little bit. But yeah, for me, Vin Scully, unbelievable. Sean McDonough, to be sure. Shout out to Doc Emmerich on the hockey side, the one sport that I can't do. But yeah, I mean, I really feel like you have to really learn what you're good at and what you're not good at and try to play to your strengths in almost any walk of life.
Fair enough. So last question from Gabe and Jake. Guys, have a way.
Go ahead, Jake.
Hey, I just want to say, John, thanks. I appreciate what you do. It's not an easy job. And I have to say, I didn't understand all the fucking confusion of what I listened to the podcast, and MMA fans they can get so bitchy and finicky. I just don't understand where all this, my buddies, some of the buddies in the media called me, MMA Weekly and some different guys, and I just didn't understand where that came from. So just want to say thank you. I'm glad you're here. I enjoy watching you every week.
Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. There's always a lesson to be learned. And sometimes when I let that fourth wall down to my podcast audience, I say things that maybe cross some sort of line or walk right up to the line. I think there's not a lot of upside in sort of talking about the fans on the whole, but dude, I just had a moment on my podcast. Like, you listen, obviously you watch it, so my producers, co-hosts, we didn't really think anything of it. And then it carried the MMA news cycle for 72 hours. But, there are going to be people who judge you. We're on a headset for 8 hours on live TV, right? There are going to be people who judge you for the rest of your career on one single utterance. Google Jon Anik custody battle if you're really curious, right? So there are going to be people who heretofore will judge me on this week of my life, and that's okay. But
8 hours, it's hard not to make a mistake. I applaud
the MMA fans, and more importantly, the roster and the UFC, have my back. And as long as that remains the case, hopefully I'll have the job.
Hell yeah, we'll keep it up, buddy.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, do you know Ron Kruk from the LFA Commentator?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've known Ron since he worked with WC back in the day when I was the champion, and he worked in boxing prior to MMA. And I was sitting down with him at an after party, and I said, I apologize for the stupidity you deal with in MMA. And he goes, I come from boxing. This is so much more highbrow. You feel like that is a correct statement? As a man that worked in boxing is now in MMA.
Are you trying to get him in trouble again, Gabe?
No, well, yes. There was no social media really when I was covering boxing, right? So I didn't have that back and forth, right? Part of the reason I'm so exposed to maybe this nastier, angrier tone that we've seen in terms of X, at least over the last 12 months, is that I want to engage with fans who have things to say about this sport that I so love. And if fans have comments about the broadcast, you've heard me probably say this repeatedly, but I want to be a conduit for these people. So that means you can't have a filter, right? You got to let all the bad in with the good, and so be it. That's my reality. So it's hard for me to compare the fan bases just because of the era in which we are in right now. But as I said earlier, the fan base turns over a lot, and who knows exactly what has led to this tone that a lot of us think is a little bit more venomous on X than was there prior. But I'm not going to post and ghost. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to be a conduit for the fans. I probably followed some of you guys back already. Obviously, we're not talking about the professional athlete Gabe, but right, like David Potter, am I following you on X? Please tell me I am.
Probably not. No, sir.
Just the point is that I am a fan of the
edit.
Cut that out.
I'm probably Gabe. Fuck Dave Potter.
I don't have X. I don't have Twitter. I haven't had a Twitter account for since probably 2010.
See there. So for me, it's primarily news, but also fan engagement. David Potter, not David Potter ZA. You're not a South African.
Related to Harry Potter. You could just follow me on Instagram. That would be fine. That would be sufficient.
All right. We'll make that happen. But, you know, I do think that a lot of MMA fans have felt the love and connection over the years, dating to my ESPN.com MMA live chat in 2007, 2008. And I enjoy that connectivity. So I look forward to diving back in here, you know, in the next few days.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, by the way, and I've been watching combat sports since I escaped the womb, and you are absolutely top MMA commentator, one of the best. You'll go down in history as one of the best. And even working in media, seeing you behind the scenes is just watching a master at his craft and watching you work and actually seeing that up front. You are such a hard worker. You're so dedicated to your craft. You're so dedicated to the fighters in the UFC. I just want to thank you very much for all your hard work. And thank you very much for even coming on the show and entertaining us and letting Gabe and Jake shit on my life and doing play-by-play to that. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. No, I appreciate the chance to come on.
Potter, there's some brown on your nose. You might want to scoop it off.
Oh, yeah. I was sniffing his ass.
You know, like hard work, right? Anybody who has procreated or has kids, right? Almost every sort of parenting thing that comes out of my mouth is rooted in hard work, right? So you could even say Anik had to close the talent gap with hard work, whatever it has to be, right? But the way I prepared for Bellator 1, obviously my process has evolved, but same shit, you know? And that hasn't failed me yet, right? Like I'm still handwriting my fighter cards and, you know, gonna just keep doing it. So I appreciate you acknowledging the hard work, and maybe we'll reconnect at some point in the future, boys. But you got a good show, and I enjoyed it tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anik. Jon Anik, the great Jon Anik.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I got the fucking applause. Man.
You're the man.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
That was clickbait.
By the way, guys, we've been together for how long? How many summers? We've been along. We've been on this journey for a very long time. But finally, we had Jon Anik doing play-by-play while you guys shit on me. Man, oh man, this was my favorite episode ever. Oh man.
I'll give you that, Potter. We'll give you that, buddy. It's not a wiener hat. It's not a wiener hat, but you know what? It's all right.
It'll do.
I want this clip to play at my funeral in rotation of just Gabe shitting on my life and Jon Anik doing play-by-play.
Jon Anik also destroyed your life too, just so you know.
Yeah, he joined us.
He's
Anik joined us to shit on you.
Yeah.
Everybody. Oh my goodness. It was fucking awesome. Went from 6 to midnight, gentlemen. Are you guys ready for 5 topics? All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all my bros and hosts and different area codes, swollen lip notes and tiny chodes, four-time, Mr. Gabe and Buzz Killington, and also, at one point in time, considered one of the best fighters in the world and one of the best ball breakers ever, Jake Hatton. Let's go 5 topics. All right, topic number 1, gentlemen. Let's go! And this was asked by the fans. We thank you very much for asking these questions. But question number 1, Vince McMahon's resignation and his allegations of sex trafficking. Holy shit. Gabe, what say you about this situation? And does it adversely affect TKO? Gabe, what say you?
Dude, you know what? Someone sent me an article about it, and it included the court documents. And I mean, one, I'm not surprised. I mean, dude, it's Vince McMahon. It's not like this is, you know, someone that is known through the world as a good guy. But even then, like, some of the stuff was hard for me. And again, like, he's a father with a daughter, and like, dude, like, the stuff that he did is, I don't know how as a man he can look at his daughter and be like, look, honey, it's just daddy's into some weird stuff. Daddy likes things different. Like, dude, my man, it was rough. I don't think it's not going to, TKO is its own separate organization. I mean, like, the thing is, I don't think it's going to hurt anything at all. Like, really, the only thing it hurts is his
legacy.
His legacy. Thank you. His legacy is the only thing that's going to be injured. But even with that, Is it really? He's the WWF WWE guy. He gets in the ring and wrestles and I saw all these clips. I'm not a pro wrestling fan. I don't know, but I've seen clips of him like biting girls' butts and like just
walk like a dog, bark like a dog. Did you ever see that clip?
Yes. So again, like does it hurt his legacy a little bit? But not really. I mean, he's Vince McMahon. It's not like he's again.
Minuscule amount, just like a smidget.
He's not known as like the most righteous guy as it. So no. What do you think?
And he made the Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, Jake, what say you, good sir? What do you think about the allegations? What do you think? Does it adversely affect TKO?
No, not. I don't even think in the least bit. I mean, might affect the shares, or the stocks a little bit in the beginning, but it'll run through the news cycle, and there'll be some other crazy event that'll take its place. And like Gabe said, people will forget all about this, so it's not a problem. I got to tell you, I agree with Gabe, and I usually do, but the one crazy thing is he's 78, and some of the text messages he's sending, it's like, damn, those are like 16-year-old perverted, Jake. I'm like the fact, but the fact that he's 78 and still keeping that freaking rock, and having that type of appetite, good for him, I guess.
TRT and blue pills, baby. Let's go.
Just steroids and blue pills and just raging.
My man's
I made an AI video in Vince, so I replicated Vince McMahon's voice, and I got the entire transcript. So I got the transcript, I translate it in Vince McMahon's voice, and I just imagine a 78-year-old man saying this crazy shit. Like he's on his phone, he's actually thinking this through his head, and this woman wants to take him down for sex trafficking, and there's people that are calling for the FBI to get involved and all this shit. Like, didn't you watch Vince McMahon on television, during the Attitude Era? He wanted to do a storyline where he got his daughter pregnant. I mean, this guy's a fucking maniac. This guy is a fucking psycho. If you are familiar with pro wrestling, this guy is fucking out of his mind. And it's
you know what? You got to think it's too bad that it's real, because this would have been a perfect storyline for wrestling.
Yeah.
Right?
No, going back to what I was saying is it's not a surprise. Now, when there's certain people that if this story came out and I'd be like, wait, David Potter did what? But Vince McMahon, I'm like, yeah, makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. But this would make a perfect storyline, though, Jake. Can you imagine Vince McMahon coming in the ring? He brings fucking Trish Stratus or something. I'm gonna shit on your head. Oh yeah, bring out all these wrestlers with fucking dildos. Oh, you're fired, or you're fired. This would make a perfect pro wrestling storyline. But that is what pro wrestling is, and this is why Vince McMahon and WWE was successful, because it was people's characters turned all the way up. And Vince McMahon being a fucking pervert psycho was. We were seeing him on television, and people are going back in the storyline. They're like, holy shit, some of the shit that he came up with.
No pun intended.
That shit was very dark.
Potter, I was reading.
Shit on some girl's head!
I'm reading all the different things and going, oh my gosh. And then I go, that's what it would take for that man to get aroused. That level of debauchery, because dude, he's the guy. You know what I mean? It'd be the same thing as if you were to read the Playboy guy. What's
Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner, and there wasn't a lot of orgies in sex with him. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be Vince McMahon without this.
All right, Giggle Panties, are you guys ready for topic number 2? All right, let's go. Topic number 2.
Just a little ditty about 2.
So there's a picture of Dana White and David Feldman. So Dana White being the president of the UFC and David Feldman of BKFC hanging out. What the hell is going on? Great question. Gabe, what say you, four-time world champ?
I think David Feldman's trying to get things going, and I look. BKFC has been built around former MMA fighters and former UFC fighters, and I know that there's been rumbling about getting a Mike Perry versus Conor McGregor fight, and I know Conor's been there. I think it's a bunch of nothing, and I think David Feldman is trying to utilize that nothing to keep his brand the momentum of his brand going. But I think it's all of a nothing because there's no way in hell that Dana White's going to do anything with bare knuckle boxing.
Hey, Gabe, we do this every fucking week. Stop stealing my answers.
Sorry.
God damn it.
Give a little more, please. Give more.
No, Gabe is 100% right. BKFC's done a really good job, but like Gabe said, with foreign wrestlers, but they're hemorrhaging money too. Don't think that their pay-per-view buys are abysmal. I mean, it's just, and people need to remember, even if you did 50,000 pay-per-view buys, you're still splitting half of that or more with the pay-per-view provider. And then your overhead, all the ridiculous money that they're paying fighters. It's not, I don't think it's a sustainable model. And of course he wants to be part of the UFC. And why would Dana join forces? I mean, Dana would create his own. He doesn't need them. He would just create his own. He's got the marketing machine. He doesn't need them.
Maybe it's a talent exchange for Mike Perry to go back to the UFC and do like a one-off.
Dude, Mike Perry's never going back to the UFC. Mike Perry found his true calling in bare knuckle. Like, 100%. Yeah, right.
And the
I
thing
like
is,
it though. Or maybe a talent exchange, Conor McGregor going to bare knuckle. I mean, that would be fucking.
They can't afford him. If Conor McGregor probably makes close to, when it's all said and done, $20+ million a fight. Yeah. UFC likely loses money when they throw an event on, right?
Do you think if Conor McGregor went to the UFC with the amount of pull that Conor McGregor has, that got USADA ripped out, got 2 more weight classes introduced, that Conor McGregor Dana White privilege, do you think he will be able to go to a Dana White and say, hey, Dana, I want to do this bare knuckle shit. Oh, yeah, let's just go in the ring with Mike Perry. It'll be fucking. Let me tell that they would actually do business. If it was a cross promotion, if it was money to be made, they would absolutely do it.
If you owned an asset, are you going to do something to ruin its value?
It's 2 different sports. It's apples and oranges.
But if he gets knocked out, cold, his
Conor McGregor did with Floyd Mayweather,
takes it.
Oh,
that was one of the biggest boxing matches in history. There's a big difference than some bare knuckle brawling in this. And the UFC is never going to let him out of his contract. Why would they?
But they'll share him. They'll absolutely. If Conor McGregor
why would the UFC?
Says, I want to do bare knuckle. He will absolutely let him.
David, if somebody came and wanted to share something with you and they're worth 10 cents, and you would they're going to get all the value in the world out of you, the UFC's not going to allow that. They're not going to partner with PFL. They're not going to partner with anybody because they don't need to. They are like Gabe said, they're the 10,000-pound gorilla, and they don't need shit. And if anybody
PFL is in the same category as UFC, of course they're not going to work with a PFL. They learned their lesson when they tried doing business with Pride and tried doing a talent exchange. They sent Rico Rodriguez and Chuck Liddell Grand Prix 2003. Rico Rodriguez got screwed against Antonio Nogueira, and Chuck Liddell got fucking dusted by Quentin Rampage Jackson, Final Conflict. And then they were supposed to send Kazuyuki Fujita, Vanderlei Silva, Kazushi Sakuraba to UFC, and Dana White got fucked. Dana White learned his lesson from there. No doing business with people in the same category. But, Jake, BKFC is in a completely different category.
Dave, I need that slap. I need that slap through the freaking. Go to the next question.
Oh, are you saying that you like power slap? Oh, did I just win the bet? Oh, I won again.
No, you don't deserve you don't deserve this. You get this.
Oh, did I just win the bet again, Jake? Oh, let's go.
Topic number 3.
The queen has been on the beat. 3.
Topic number 3. Get your winger hat, Potter. What? I don't know who keeps fucking asking this, but it's really shrinking my boner. How about you get me a spoon
whatever fan asked that, thank you, because I've been getting DMs too. Yeah,
get me a spoon so you can eat my ass. How about that? I'm not gonna get a fucking wiener hat. Both these guys are. The bet's still ongoing because Jake was sharing clips of me at Power Slap. I bet these guys that they would be fans of Power Slap. Jake was sharing clips of Power Slap.
Go to 4. Gabe, we can't listen to this.
I want you to stick those 4 fingers up your ass sideways and send me more clips of Power Slap so you can admit defeat that I won the bet. Number 4, fuck you.
Love question 4.
Topic number 4. The main event of UFC 300, what is it going to be? And I was actually hearing rumblings about that, about Conor McGregor fighting against Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor versus Chandler, and they keep kicking the ball around, but nothing's fucking happened. Like, what's going on? What say you, Gabe?
Yeah, I don't know. And I've heard those grumblings as well. I mean, I know that they keep saying it's going to be crazy, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, we just had to talk to Jon Anik, and he didn't know either. But I mean, he was saying the light heavyweight, or was he saying middleweight? I'm like, so there are titles.
I think it was lightweight and light heavyweight.
No. I think it was middleweight and light heavyweight. I think what he's referring to, it's either got to be Izzy, Paulo Costa, Robert Whitaker. Those are the big names, and then you have Hazmat. But I think Chimaev. But I think he has some visa issues because he has yet. I believe he's yet to fight in the States, and he fought like 4 times in a week. Remember in Abu Dhabi. So, and then maybe you have Conor and Diaz. I've heard those rumblings too. And then Poirier got pulled off UFC 299. And I wonder if they're trying to match him up with Conor or trying to do a big matchup. It just seemed kind of convenient that they're not, that they're not fighting on that one. But
I mean, I think Poirier Conor was at 4. I mean,
16,
12, 34. I mean, I'd watch that.
I would too, just to see Conor get beat up.
Exactly, 100%. Yep.
I'm sorry. What were you saying, sir?
But I have no idea. But I mean, the rest of the card is really a good card.
Oh, that's a great card.
Yeah, I mean, do I think it's the best card of all time? No. But is it a really good, stellar card? 100%.
299 actually really screwed him, don't you think, Potter?
Yeah.
Because it was so great. Everybody's like, well, what the hell? 299 is this brilliant card, and you've had UFC 100 amazing, UFC 200 amazing, UFC 300. It's a great card, but again, I think they're still missing that marquee, just that crazy Conor or Izzy or somebody big on there.
Yeah, you know what? And I, once again, when you guys were shitting on my entire existence, I was making the point that every single fight could be a main event for UFC 300 or be a potential main event. Like, I'm excited for even the prelims. Fuck you. I'm excited for every single
body language.
Jesus.
Wow.
Potter.
Wow.
You don't need to try to bully Gabe and I. We have feelings too. Gabe and I have feelings too.
I am so fucking sorry. But every single fight on the card is exciting. Every single fight. Every single fight, including Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm, the people's main event. My main event, baby.
It's a good fight. I didn't say it wasn't a good fight.
Oh, but it's not main event caliber. Oh, Gabe. Oh, it's not main event caliber, though, Gabe.
It's not.
It is not.
Oh, a former world champion versus a PFL champion. That's not main event caliber? What? Gabe, you're a 4-time world champion. You could appreciate 2 world champions fighting each other. Why would it ever be on the prelims?
Kayla,
look at the card, Potter. You're going to put her ahead of all these other killers?
I'm excited. That's what I was alluding to.
Kayla,
every single fight is main event caliber.
Kayla's not the PFL champion. She lost the title. So
yeah, but she's a former champion, just like Holly Holm.
There's a lot of former champions. That's not that. Like
I call you 4-time world champion, Gabe.
Hey, Gabe. Here we go. I got you. Are you going to put them ahead of Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway? Oh my God. No. Zhang Weili and Yan Sanon, nope. Charles Oliveira and Sarkanian. No Yuri Prohaska and Alexander Rakic, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling. I mean, Jesus. Yeah. Bobby Green, Jim Miller. I mean,
they're all exceptional fights.
All great fights.
Can I seriously answer that question? May I please? Yes.
You got me there, Potter. You really did. You had me. You teed that one up and fucking hit it out.
All right, we're ready for topic number 5, good sirs.
5.
All right, let's go. Topic number 5.
Let's make a baby 5.
Jake Paul's next opponent announced. What say you? It's Jake Paul fighting against another tomato can. Gabe.
I actually just saw this today. I think he's fighting a guy that retired in 2018 and works on an oil rig. And, I mean, like I guess Jake Paul is supposed to be the main event, so it shouldn't matter who he fights, but it 100% does. It 100% matters, especially now that he's going into the realm of fighting boxers.
Yeah,
he needs to fight at least recognizable names. And when he fought MMA guys, like everyone, he fought, a very everyone was well known that he fought. And now, I don't. I mean, is he going to win? Are people tuning in for whatever the other guy is? Jeb.
Player 2. We can just call him Player 2.
Yeah,
Player 2. We can call him Player 2 or Create a Boxer. Yeah, we can call him Create a Boxer or Tomato Can.
But at some point, it's just like, come on, man. Like, if you're trying to pretend to be what you say you are, you need to step up. You need to step up.
Absolutely. Jake, what say you about his next challenging opponent?
I have a little bit different angle, and I'm not going to shit on the Jake Paul this time because boxers historically have 20, 30 fights at a time, just shitty tomato cans, but they're not in the limelight. And Jake Paul just so happened to have a massive audience, and Jake and Logan Paul are brilliant marketers, and this is what they've done. So he's just building up his career. He's getting more experience. He does seem to be getting better every fight. And would I like to see him fight somebody better? Yes. But, he's still, 6-1? He's only had 7 fights. So I give him a little, and he's, Amanda Serrano, that girl, she's a monster boxer. He's given everybody else a platform to get eyeballs on them as well. So I do like what he's doing, and I'm not going to hate on him. If he keeps doing this for the next 10 fights, I will. But at some point, even boxers, they have a ton of tomato cans, and then you're right, and then they get a big matchup.
I can see that, and you're not wrong on that. I feel like who's going to pay money to watch it? Maybe
he's got that young audience, though, Gabe. He's got that young internet audience, and I think a lot of them tune in either because they love him or they hate him. But that's what you want to be. You know what I mean? You want people to tune in because I don't care as long as they're giving me the money. As long as I win or lose, and I think that's where he is.
I think Jake Paul is in a very peculiar situation, and because once again he was doing the boxer's journey. And he was fighting essentially people who were 0-0 or 0-1, or Anderson Silva's case, who was like 4-1 or something like that. The last boxing fight was in 1999 or 1998, whatever. And there were notable names. There were very popular names. So it was the boxer's journey he was essentially following, where he was fighting, essentially 0-0, just like him, but who had massive names in another sport, And now he's shifting his focus on climbing up the ranks. And it's very, very difficult for people now to take it seriously because he fought such notable names where the entire card was pretty much anchored by his name fighting this other big name. And now he wants to revert back to the reals boxer's journey where you're fighting people that you may have not heard of. So you're going to get laughs like from me saying, oh, he's fighting another tomato can. But everyone's considering people that he's going to fight tomato cans is because in comparison, he fought against Anderson Silva. He fought against Nate Diaz. Everyone's going to be a tomato can compared to fucking those names. But Jake Paul is in a very unique situation, and hopefully he's growing as a talent and growing as a boxer as he's doing the boxer journey. Just like, Floyd Mayweather has done. His first fight after the Olympics in '96 was in a Las Vegas parking lot, which, by the way, sponsored by Dana White back in the day. Their relationship goes back that far. But yeah, it's very hard to revert back to that regular boxer journey where, like Mike Tyson went through it, all the greats went through it, and now Jake Paul has to do the boxer's journey, and his pretty much what he relies on is attention. Yeah, that's his primary focus at the end of the day. But now it's going to be very, very difficult for people to take it seriously until he reaches the top 10 or like top 15 because he's fought such big names and so early in his career too.
I do respect him even more is because he doesn't need to fight.
Yeah.
He's got so much money, and Those guys really train their ass off. So they take it serious. I appreciate that as a coach, as a fighter. And I know, Gabe, you probably do too. Might not agree with what they do, but, you know, he's had to do it. He's had to do it, you know, in front of a huge spotlight, but he doesn't need the money. Look at Connor. You can't beg that guy to fight. And Jake Paul, like him or hate him, I mean, he's still fighting. So he doesn't need to, and he's still doing it. So that tells me he probably loves the sport. So, you know.
So, boys and girls, that was Fight World Live's top 5. We are wrapping up the show like a Christmas present. Final words, final thoughts, gentlemen. A very, very, very interesting broadcast. We want to thank Jon Anik for hopping on, UFC Commentator, one of the best MMA commentators in the game. Gargle his balls. He's that talented. He deserves it. But final words and final thoughts from the four-time world champion and also owner of one of the best gyms on the planet. You also get a free class. And you get to train with a former world champion, also BJJ black belt, for free for your first class. Oh my God, just went from 6 to midnight. Mr. Gabe. Gabe, final words, final thoughts. Good
awesome,
sir.
guys. I just want to keep it going. I think the show is improving, and let's keep the momentum going.
Very nice. And also the biggest ball buster I know, and my big brother from another mother. At one point in time, considered one of the best fighters in the world, Thunder Jake Hatton. Final words, final thoughts. Good sir.
Potter, I'm proud of you for your head not literally exploding, because at one time I saw your ears getting red of excitement, and I thought for sure you were going to blow up. And I do have one complaint though to Gabe. Gabe, where is our sweatshirt and our T-shirt? Where's our Kaju stuff?
You shyster. You promised us gear.
I did. You know what? And you're not wrong.
July.
I had care packages for Vegas, then I didn't go to Vegas.
Fair enough.
You know what? You know what though? I don't have your. I have Potter's address. I don't have yours.
I'll come out there to train. I got to come out to Cali anyways. I'd love to come train with you. You can show me some things, and I'll pick it up then.
Dude, you know what's crazy? We were supposed to fight. We've had a friendship. We've never had any training. So I would love that. I would love that.
Me too, buddy.
And I'll give you a dry fit. I'll give you a hoodie, and I'll give you a T-shirt as well.
Hell yeah.
Done.
But and all kidding aside,
you gonna offer him. Are you gonna gargle his balls too? You gonna offer him a reach around too, Gabe? Because you're busting my balls before. Gonna offer him a blowjob? Gonna offer him
sure,
booty grab?
Sure, why not? We're gonna tie you into knots. Oh,
yeah,
buddy.
Yeah. I think you and I have to train, Potter.
I'm sorry. I think I need to back it down. Like I'm on the shelf.
All right.
But all kidding aside, man, I'm super happy we're back. I love the show, man. I miss it. I love you guys, and all the guests we're bringing on. It's fantastic. And I think we're what number are we on Amazon's top 100?
Oh my God, we're number 4 today.
Number
Holy
4,
shit!
Number 4. Hell yeah!
Let's go. All right, Hey, gentlemen.
Let's go. So, from all of us here at Fight World Live on Amazon Prime, David Potter with the four-time world champion, Mr. Gabe, and along with someone considered one of the best fighters in the world at one point in time, Mr. Thunder Jake Hatton, who can still whoop your ass. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Fight World Live on Amazon Prime. We'll check you later. Peace.